My fiancé and my own brother teamed up to imprison me. They slashed my face, then had the fake heiress undergo surgery to look exactly like me. Finally, they set the house on fire, trying to burn me alive inside. When I opened my eyes again, my face was still freshly slashed. Julia Reed, the fake heiress, was walking toward the operating table, a smug look on her face as she said, "The Morgan family's wealth, their favor, and your fiancé soon, all of it will be mine." I sneered coldly and snapped. I grabbed a surgical knife and slashed her face, then cut off her tongue. Facing the doctor, I warned, "You know better than anyone what kind of people those outside are. If they find out Julia Reed's face is Rue and that she's meat in front of you, do you really think they'll let you off? Help me restore my appearance and let me take her place. This will be our secret between you and me, no one else will ever know." I took a deep breath and lay down on the operating table. After a long while, the doctor approached, trembling as he picked up the scalpel. "I was just cleaning up my tools, I know nothing. Whatever grudges you have with each other have nothing to do with me." I nodded and closed my eyes. I recalled my previous life. After returning to the Morgan family, I watched my parents struggle over what to do with Julia Reed. I even took the initiative and suggested letting her stay in the family. Back then, I was naive and thought my tolerance and generosity would help me integrate better into the family. But Julia Reed accused me of humiliating her and burst into tears as she ran away. My brother chased after her, leaving behind a warning. "Don't think you can do anything just because you have Morgan blood. I only have one sister, and that's Julia. You have no say in this family." My parents looked at me helplessly and told me Julia had always been hot-tempered and spoiled. My brother was just acting on impulse and I shouldn't hold it against them. Seeing the tears in their eyes, I believed them. But no matter how much I tried to be patient, Julia Reed remained hostile toward me, constantly running to my parents, crying about how I stole her jewelry, her favor. My brother would always side with her without hesitation. Over time, even my parents began to blame me, asking why I couldn't just let things go and why I caused unrest in the Morgan family. I even overheard their conversations. "If we'd known it would come to this, we never would have brought her back. Our family would have stayed peaceful. She's not even raised here." That kind of mindset never changes. She's already a Morgan by blood, why does she have to bully Julia, an orphan? When the surgery ended, I picked up the mirror, my face still covered in bandages. I knew very soon, my fiancé and brother would come in, suggesting we burn me alive here to leave no loose ends. I wanted to see their faces when they realized the one they burned was Julia Reed. I straightened my clothes and opened the door. My brother and fiancé surrounded me immediately. "Julia, are you okay?" they asked. I nodded, noticing my fiancé's gaze flicker toward the room. I quietly explained. "Before the surgery, she suddenly woke up. I was afraid she caused trouble, so I had the doctor restrain her." "Michael Evans," my fiancé snapped back to himself and smiled, pulling me into his arms. "Why tell me all this? I know exactly what kind of person you are. I just didn't want her upsetting you again." I nodded, pressing my face against his chest to hide the tears in my eyes. "Actually, Michael and I have known each other for a long time, 3 years in high school, 4 in college, 7 years of dating. But because of our different social backgrounds, his parents never approved of me. Our marriage was always postponed. Finally, with my status as a Morgan heiress, we got engaged." But Michael's heart gradually shifted toward Julia Reed. He who once fought against my family for me slowly aligned with them. He began urging me to tolerate Julia, even making me apologize to her at my own birthday party when Julia felt ignored. That's when I found out they had been involved behind my back all along. Sensing my tears, Michael hugged me tighter, gently brushing my cheek and wiping away my tears. His light kisses fell softly on my hair. "What's wrong?" he murmured. My grip on his shirt tightened. This gentle, coaxing way was something he'd figured out through all our arguments, yet I never thought he'd use it on someone else. Pathetic. I wiped my tears and slipped out of his embrace. My brother's eyes blazed with fury the moment he saw my red-rimmed eyes. Did she say something to you in there again? I should have just silenced her and tied her up from the start. Michael Evans clearly agreed and nodded. I was careless. After saying this, the two exchanged a glance, then poured several buckets of gasoline into the room. They lit it and sealed the door shut. Watching the thick smoke billow out from the room, my heart filled with bitter sorrow and rage. One was my own brother, the other was the man I had loved for 7 years. How could they send me to die so calmly, without a flicker of emotion? I still remembered when I first returned to the Morgan family. Though my brother wasn't warm toward me, he paid attention to my needs. When I fell in the garden, he would furrow his brows and come over to tend to my wounds. His movements were clumsy, but his expression was sincere. I could even see genuine concern in his eyes. When someone at a company dinner tried to force-feed me alcohol and cause a scene, he stood in front of me protectively until they sheepishly left. Even then, he never said comforting words, just silently watched me, as if checking that I was all right. As time went by, the distance between us slowly lessened. Though he didn't say it aloud, I felt he was trying bit by bit to accept me. Maybe it was this subtle change that unsettled Julia Reed. She had tried to frame me by deliberately throwing herself down the stairs, but she miscalculated the surveillance blind spots. When my parents discovered it, she burst into tears and apologized, claiming she had been momentarily lost in her mind and only wanted more attention from them and my brother. Seeing my parents and brother distressed, I once again chose to forgive and agreed to let her stay with the Morgans. Little did I know that decision would cost me everything. Suddenly, there was a commotion inside the room. A figure covered in sparks appeared, reaching out of the window. My heart jolted. I was terrified they would discover that person was the real Julia Reed. But then my brother, wielding a steel fork he had somehow obtained, viciously shoved the figure back inside. Watching his resolute action, it felt as though my blood froze. The brother who once carefully tended my wounds, who stood up for me in danger, did he really want me dead like this? Michael Evans, standing behind me, pulled me into his arms and covered my eyes. Don't be afraid. She's only getting what she deserves. Deserves it? What unforgivable crime had I committed to deserve this treatment? I pulled my arm free from Michael Evans' grasp and stared hard at the window engulfed in flames. Julia Reed struggled again to climb out through the fire, her face completely burned, unable to make a sound. She flailed her arms desperately, trying to escape. But my brother stood there expressionless. He raised the steel fork and pushed her back inside again and again. Seeing Julia Reed still struggling to crawl out, my brother frowned, took an oil can from his assistant, and poured the gasoline all over the window. Michael Evans' grip on my arm tightened, but in the end, he didn't stop him. The gasoline was immediately ignited by the roaring fire, intensifying the blaze toward Julia Reed. She screamed in agony, her arms wildly flailing, trying to fight off the sudden disaster. But it was all in vain. Her figure gradually blurred in the flames, her desperate struggles slowly fading away. It's over now. Michael Evans held me tightly, his voice low and heavy, comforting me, or perhaps comforting himself. I stood stiffly in his arms, my heart filled with cold sorrow. Is it really over? Michael Evans froze, loosening his hold in disbelief. But when his hand touched the bandages on my face, he calmed down. He chuckled softly. Julia, the way you speak sounds exactly like Zoe. Honestly, I'm having trouble telling you two apart. Is that so? Well, since I'll be living as her from now on, better get used to it sooner rather than later. My heart skipped a beat. I shifted the topic smoothly and feigned worry. Michael Evans, what do you think we should do now? He smiled faintly and ruffled my hair. From now on, just focus on being Zoe Morgan. Everything in the Morgan family belongs to you. As for that woman, let her disappear forever. I sneered coldly inside, but put on a mask of obedience. Okay, I'll do whatever you say. Soon, the thick smoke caught people's attention. Fire trucks and police arrived one after another. But it was already too late, the fire was out of control. By afternoon, the room had been reduced to ruins. firefighters carefully searched through the debris. Soon, Julia Reed's charred body was carried out. Seeing the unrecognizable face on the stretcher, my tense body relaxed slightly. With the Morgan and Evans family's influence in Shuo Chang, and my brother and Michael Evans busy behind the scenes, Julia Reed's cremation date was quickly set. 3 days later, I stood outside the crematorium. I looked up at my brother and Michael Evans, arms crossed, hoping to find even a flicker of guilt in their eyes. But there was none. Just as Julia Reed's body was about to be pushed into the furnace, my parents hurried over. Seeing the grief and sorrow etched on their faces, my heart softened and tears welled up. I was eager to tell them I wasn't dead to spare them from more pain. But in the next moment, my mother rushed over and held me tightly. She said, "Julia, don't be afraid. Mom and Dad will never blame you." The sound hit me like a hammer. My last hope was shattered by despair. I widened my eyes, disbelief written all over my face, but forced myself to control my emotions. If everyone in this family wished I were dead, then why go through the trouble of this whole face-swapping charade? I opened my mouth, wanting to say something, but my throat felt blocked. No sound came out. My mind was a blur, until I suddenly remembered that birthday party. Someone had doubted Julia Reed's legitimacy as a Morgan family member because she didn't look like them. Julia had exploded in anger over that and ran around crying to everyone. I closed my eyes and let all those subtle events connect in my mind. All along, I thought the idea to swap identities was just a whim between my brother and Michael Evans. But it turned out they had planned it long ago. I stiffened my arms and hugged my mother, as if clutching onto a block of ice. Ignoring the cold, I tightened my grip little by little, wanting to freeze myself solid right there. But my mother thought I was scared, so she hugged me tighter. "Julia, don't be afraid. Mom won't let anyone who hurt you go unpunished. Don't be sad or blame yourself. She deserves it. He destroyed your identity, so she should pay with her own." I furrowed my brows, unable to understand what they were saying. I recalled Michael Evans and my brother had said similar things back then. But what exactly had I done? They didn't even give me a chance to defend myself. They just sentenced me to death outright. Ridiculous. After Julia Reed was reduced to ashes at the crematorium, my parents immediately took me home and held a small family gathering. Listening to them call out "Dear Julia" over and over at the dinner table, my sorrow gradually softened. They probably didn't know the one who died was the Julia they cared about, while the one who lived, that's me, the deserving sinner in their eyes. At the banquet, I took advantage of everyone's guard being down and got Michael Evans drunk. Honestly, I had once hoped for my parents' and brother's love. But I had lost them for so many years, and had long grown accustomed to life without them. Having never had them, what difference would losing them again make? But Michael Evans was different. My memories with him spanned my entire youth. Even after 2 lifetimes, I had to get the truth straight for myself. Using the excuse of his drunkenness, I kept Michael Evans at the Morgan estate and slowly extracted the whole story. From their perspective, I was the villain who hired thugs to corner Julia Reed, causing her infertility and the scandalous photos to spread everywhere. They said it drove Julia Reed into severe psychological distress. Though the Morgan and Evans families had long colluded to suppress the online uproar, Julia Reed couldn't let it go and refused to report it to the police. Anyone who spoke in front of her felt like they were gossiping about her. My parents, brother, and Michael Evans all pinned the blame on me. I smiled bitterly. At least now I understood why Julia Reed lost her mind at my birthday party, and why Michael Evans forced me to apologize to her. But through the whole ordeal, no one ever asked me a single question. Not one. Based solely on Julia Reed's word and a few thugs' accusations, they ruthlessly sentenced me to death. Fine. I shut the guest room door and immediately reported everything to the police. When my parents and brother asked, I simply said, "Since I no longer need Julia Reed's identity, it's better to make everything public and let the wicked face justice." Seeing how troubled they looked, I added, "Don't worry. I'll handle it carefully and it won't affect my current identity." A few days earlier, to prevent my ashes from entering the Morgan family burial grounds. My parents had already publicly revealed that I had no blood relation to the Morgans. So now, Julia Reed's scandal wouldn't tarnish the family's reputation. With a single-minded desire for revenge, I faced no resistance. My brother stepped forward and patted my shoulder. "I'll stand by you. But after this, let's completely forget the past. You are now the true Morgan daughter, Zoe Morgan." I nodded, and with the backing of the Morgan family, began a thorough investigation into what really happened. If Julia Reed hadn't hidden the truth and recklessly slandered me, the truth would have come out long ago. As the investigation progressed, the facts gradually came to light. Julia Reed had indeed suffered, but videos inadvertently captured by bystanders showed it wasn't me who harmed her. In fact, I had pulled her out from the crowd, pretending to be powerful and saving her. We had left so hurriedly that we hadn't deleted the photos on their phones. Afterward, Julia Reed forbade me from reporting it and made me keep it a secret, which led to the scandalous photos spreading everywhere. The thugs, furious that I ruined their scheme, clung to me as the mastermind behind it all. After the police left, my parents, brother, and Michael Evans stood silently for a long time. Then Michael Evans rushed over, grabbed my shoulders tightly, and shouted hysterically, "Why didn't you tell them it was Zoe who saved you back then?" Seeing him break down like that, I replied lightly, "In that situation, not being able to distinguish right from wrong or remember everything clearly isn't that perfectly normal." Michael Evans stared at me in disbelief. My brother rushed over and grabbed my collar. "If you can't remember, then why were you so certain? That was a human life, we're not playing around here." I sneered and pulled his hand away. "I can't remember clearly, which is why you should have investigated. You didn't do your job right, accused the wrong person, and now you're blaming me? Aren't you the ones who actually killed her? The ones who set her on fire? The ones who knowingly let her burn to death?" I took a step back and scanned everyone in the room. Slowly and deliberately, I said, "It was you who killed her with your own hands." My mother collapsed into my father's arms, sobbing until she nearly lost consciousness. They trembled as they held each other, their pain almost suffocating. My brother stumbled back a few steps, fell to the ground, and cried out, "It's my fault. I shouldn't have done those things to Zoe without getting the full story. I'm the one who killed her." Michael Evans stood there, stunned, his eyes filled with despair and guilt. He looked at me like I was a stranger. "How could I have been so foolish, to not believe Zoe and to help you hurt her?" Then, Michael Evans reached out and grabbed my throat. "It's you've been misleading us all along. If it weren't for you, Zoe would still be alive. It's all your fault." Without hesitation, I grabbed a nearby ashtray and smashed it against his head. "Michael Evans, how long are you going to keep lying to yourself? You killed her. You didn't believe her. Who else is to blame?" Blood slowly trickled down from his forehead as he staggered back a few steps, clutching the wound. His eyes were full of pain and confusion. I was really wrong," he muttered to himself, his body swaying as if about to collapse. My brother got up from the ground and lunged at Michael Evans, punching him in the face. "It's all your fault. Zoe trusted you, loved you. Why didn't you believe her? You killed her." Michael Evans's eyes were bloodshot as he stared fiercely at my brother's fists flying at him. "What about you? Have you forgotten who it was that stood by the window, stabbing her back inside again and again?" My brother's fists suddenly froze. Pain and regret contorted his face. Michael Evans swung a punch and knocked him to the ground. The two men quickly began to fight, throwing punches wildly, denting their emotions, paying no attention to the blows landing on themselves. My father watched the chaotic scene and shouted loudly, "Enough, stop this madness. What's the point of arguing now? Zoe is gone, and we've made irreversible mistakes. What we need to do now is make amends, not blame each other." My mother snapped out of her grief, wiped away her tears, and said, "Yes, we can't go on like this. We have to do something for Zoe, so her spirit can rest in peace." From above, I looked down at this pile of broken people and mercilessly shattered their illusions. Rest in peace? Have you forgotten that her ashes were scattered? There's no peace, only dust and bone. At my words, my parents trembled violently. Their faces drained of color as the weight of pain and despair spread like ink. My father's lips quivered but no words came out. My mother collapsed to the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. My brother stood frozen, his face etched with regret and anguish, as if his soul had been ripped out. Michael Evans stared blankly, like a statue wrapped in endless sorrow and guilt. They all knew what they had done was unforgivable. They had forever lost any chance of redemption. Then, Michael Evans suddenly lifted his head, looked me straight in the eyes with unmasked hatred, and said, "What about you? We made mistakes, but if it weren't for your deception, none of this would have happened. We're all sinners. None of us will find peace." I stood my ground, staring at the floor. Michael Evans, desperate to vent his emotions, said, "Yes, I'm guilty too. But wasn't this all caused by your prejudice and lies? You never gave her a chance to explain. You sentenced her based solely on your word. You've already killed Zoe Morgan. Do you want to kill me again too?" I left those words hanging in the air and turned away. This is my second chance at life. Not only will I avenge my past self, but I will also live this life happily. I will no longer suffer because of these despicable people. 2 months later, I removed the bandages from my face and found a decent job. During those 2 months, they avoided me, afraid to face me. My parents stayed in the room I once lived in, silently crying. My brother shut himself away, drowning his sorrows in alcohol, his career in freefall. Michael Evans was like a walking corpse, mechanically going through each day. He went to many places we had once been, even tried to search the sea where my ashes were scattered, hoping to recover me. But it was all in vain. One day, I went to my usual cake shop and unexpectedly saw Michael Evans standing there stunned. The moment our eyes met, his face lit up with joy. He hurried over and wrapped me in his arms. "Zoe, is that you? I knew you'd be okay. You just got mad at me for not believing you and hid away, didn't you?" He bent down, looking earnestly into my eyes, pleading. I smiled softly and gently pulled his hand down. "Have you forgotten? It was your idea in the first place to change my face completely and take over her identity." I leaned close to his ear, lowering my voice. "The real Zoe Morgan was already killed by you. I'm the Julia Reed who took her place. How could you forget me?" Michael's body jolted. His eyes widened in disbelief. He released his hold on me and stepped back slowly. "No, that can't be, you're not Julia Reed. You're Zoe. You're my Zoe." Watching his panic-stricken face gave me a quiet satisfaction. I touched my cheek and said, "Michael Evans, it's just plastic surgery. Are you still deceiving yourself? Zoe Morgan is dead. She was killed by your own hands." Pain and despair flooded his eyes. "No, this isn't true. Zoe, please don't do this to me. I know I was wrong. Forgive me. Please give me another chance." I looked at him coldly. If this had been my past life, maybe I would have softened. But after truly feeling what it's like to be burned alive by flames, nothing could ever make me soft again. I will live on as Zoe Morgan. But at the same time, in front of my parents, my brother and Michael Evans, I will keep up the charade that I am Julia Reed. I want them to drown in pain and guilt for the rest of their lives, trapped with no escape. And this is only the beginning. Mental torment alone can't make up for the harm they caused. I will make sure they receive the punishment they deserve. I began searching for evidence of the arson. Meanwhile, Michael Evans seemed to sense something was wrong and started testing me repeatedly. He told me many things about the shared experiences between her and Julia Reed. I couldn't answer, naturally raising Michael's suspicions. His gaze sharpened, staring at me as if trying to see through me. "I don't know what happened in that room, but you are Zoe Morgan. Stop lying to me." He reached out to grab me. "I'm glad you managed to survive and bring justice to those who framed you, even when no one believed you. But for the sake of our years together, please give me one more chance." I brushed his hand away, neither accepting nor rejecting. I calmly looked at him. "I can give you a chance. But it depends if you can deserve it." His eyes brightened instantly. Tell me what to do. I looked up at the huge family portrait hanging in the living room. After they learned they had wrongly accused me, my parents quickly replaced the old portrait with one of me in them. But I had no desire for such an honor. I want to know when they decided to set fire to kill me and let Julia Reed take my place, what roles did each of them play? As long as they get the punishment they deserve, I'll think about giving you that chance. Michael hesitated but couldn't resist the temptation. He started telling me everything, carefully choosing his words, occasionally glancing up to gauge my reaction. He was so nervous that he didn't notice the trembling figure standing frozen at the corner of the second floor. After Michael left, I looked up at the person on the second floor. Well, brother, do you think he missed anything or got something wrong? You can start correcting him now. My brother's body trembled slightly, his eyes full of shock and panic. After a moment, he took heavy steps down the stairs. Zoe, it really is you. His voice was hoarse, filled with unbelievable joy. I thought I'd never see you again. I looked at him coldly, unmoved. Surprised to see me? Brother, you probably didn't expect I was still alive. Pain flashed across his face. Zoe, I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have believed Julia Reed, nor should I have taken part in hurting you. He dropped to his knees by my feet. Zoe, I truly regret it. I'm sorry, so sorry. You can scold or hit me, deserve it all. I know nothing I say now can make up for what I've done to you. But please believe me, I will do everything I can to make it right. You want the criminals to get what they deserve, right? Michael Evans can't be trusted. But me? I'm here for you. I will spend the rest of my life making amends. Please just give me one more chance. Let me be your brother again and protect you properly. I pulled his hand off my clothes. But I don't need your protection anymore. What I want is for the wrongdoers to get the punishment they deserve. His hand dropped weakly, eyes filled with despair. Zoe, I truly regret what I did. I shouldn't have treated you that way. Please just give me one more chance to make up for my mistakes. Regret? What good is regret now? I glared at him. When you set fire to me, did you ever stop to think about how I felt? When you let Julia Reed take over my identity, did you ever consider how unfair that was to me? He hung his head, speechless. I knew he might be sincere in wanting to repent and make amends. But the Zoe Morgan from my past life was already dead, and the painful memories kept replaying in my mind. I had to give myself some closure. Even if it was only for the sake of my past self, I couldn't let them go. I moved between my brother and Michael Evans, watching them offer each other evidence of their crimes as proof of their loyalty to me. I accepted everything silently but never responded. Their crime of arson and murder was punishable by law. But their knowing and allowing my parents to let me burn, that could only be judged by morality. What's worse, my brother and Michael Evans, who knew the truth about the identity swap, conspired to keep it buried, letting no one find out. I was satisfied with their choice. Parents who casually decide the fate of their own child deserve to be haunted by nightmares, never knowing peace. However, when I tried to bring the arson charges against my brother and Michael Evans to court, my parents strongly opposed it. Julia, Zoe is already dead. What you're doing will only hurt your brother and Michael Evans. It won't change anything. People die, but the living must look forward. Your father and I are very sad, but we can't just act recklessly. If Zoe's spirit watches over us, she'd want our family to be well. But Zoe Morgan was not dead. She desperately wanted revenge for her past life. I slowly lifted my head and looked coldly at my parents. Their anxious, angry faces struck me as utterly hypocritical. I once thought their grief after my death was out of love and sorrow. But now, it seemed nothing more than a way to soothe their own conscience. When real consequences came knocking, they recoiled, shouting to protect this so-called family. I lowered my head, suddenly realizing how laughable my past thoughts of punishing them with death truly were. You claim to love Zoe Morgan, but is this really love? When she was hurt, you stayed silent. And when I tried to seek justice for her, you stepped in to stop me. If your so-called family happiness depends on her suffering, then this family might as well not exist. Stop pretending to love her. You only love your own interests. My parents staggered back, faces pale, eyes full of pain and guilt. I smiled. Parents can choose not to love their children, but if you don't love, just say it. Children will eventually understand that they live for themselves. You have the right not to love anyone, but please, don't pretend to. Don't fool yourself. Just like you're doing now. My parents opened their mouth, wanting to argue but finding no words. They could so easily ignore my pain and injustice in the name of protecting this so-called family. Well, then I would fight for myself to the very end. I turned and left the house, my resolve for revenge stronger than ever. Using the evidence my brother and Michael Evans helped me gather, I had no intention of sparing either of them. They seemed to sense my intentions and grew more cautious. The evidence they submitted became vague, and they even tried to cover up their crimes and destroy proof. Meanwhile, I began seeking allies of my own. My focus was no longer limited to the arson. We started with my brother's company. He ran a large enterprise, and some of his shady business dealings became our breakthrough. We collected evidence of his collusion with unscrupulous businessmen and handed it over to the authorities. At the same time, we exposed the arson and murder on the internet, drawing widespread public attention. My brother's company plunged into crisis, and his reputation was shattered. Meanwhile, Michael Evans scrambled to escape responsibility. He used his connections to try and clear his name. But the overwhelming public outcry made anyone who might help him think twice. I was no longer alone. More and more people joined the fight for justice for me. As the Morgan and Evans family's power began to crumble, I filed a lawsuit. With the complete chain of evidence and clear facts, plus secret recordings of their confessions to me, the case moved swiftly through the courts. Convicted of multiple crimes, my brother and Michael Evans were sentenced to heavy prison terms, destined to spend many long years behind bars. Their assets were confiscated and used to compensate the victims. Since the victims were already deceased, I chose to donate that money to an orphanage. It was over. I never looked back, not once, at my brother or Michael Evans. Nor did I return to the Morgan family estate. Instead, I moved away from there. I went to the sea where Julia Reed's ashes were scattered, the very place where the woman who once so desperately sought to replace me had now become nothing more than dust in the waves. Between her two lives and my previous one, what we longed for was like the sun slipping through our fingers, impossible to grasp and yet blinding us all the same. A life for a life, Julia Reed. We are even. One last glance at the city I once knew so well, and I left it behind. Slowly, my life began to get back on track. I often visit the orphanage to see the children there, their innocent smiles reminding me of my former self, the little girl who once yearned so deeply for love and care. Now grown, I have the strength to protect myself and to shield those young blossoms who have yet to bloom. Those who once hurt me have been duly punished. With time, the obsession in my heart has melted away like ice and snow. I began to appreciate the beauty of life, and discovered many overlooked wonders along the way. What we do is always seen by heaven. Justice may be delayed, but it is never denied. And I, carrying this newfound love and insight, will bravely step into the future to write a story that belongs to me alone. In my previous life, Nathaniel Hale claimed he was deeply concerned about the education of children in remote mountain areas. Using that as an excuse, he insisted on resigning from his secure, tenured teaching position to volunteer in a rural region. I argued with him, pleaded with him, but he accused me of lacking empathy, of being unable to understand his noble dream. Left with no choice, I stayed behind in our hometown. For decades I worked tirelessly caring for his aging mother until her final days, and raising his younger sister as if she were my own. Before she passed, my mother-in-law, hands trembling, thanked me softly, yet left her entire inheritance to Nathaniel Hale. His sister, unaware of the truth, accused me of stealing the inheritance. She even live-streamed her accusations, unleashing a wave of online abuse against me. Only then did I discover that Nathaniel's so-called dream of rural teaching was nothing but a cover. He had already started a new family elsewhere. I died in a fit of rage on my way to confront them. But when I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day I received my college acceptance letter. This time I want to see how Nathaniel Hale plans to have it all. Neela, did your acceptance letter arrive? Give it to me, I'll keep it safe for you. His eyes shifted away from my hands. I blinked, slowly returning to my senses. My fingers, once gnarled by decades of labor, were now smooth and youthful, no trace of the toil that once aged me. I didn't get in, I replied flatly. Nathaniel Hale let out a breath of relief and pulled me into a hug. No wonder you've been so moody. It's okay if you didn't get in, just means you can stay home and keep working, take care of the family like before. As I looked into his anxious face, my heart clenched with a pain I couldn't describe. In my previous life, Nathaniel Hale had claimed he was worried about the education of children in remote mountain areas. Using that as an excuse, he gave up his tenured teaching position to go teach in the countryside. With no one left to care for his mother or sister, he persuaded me to drop out of school. We held a simple banquet with a few close relatives and friends, calling it a wedding celebration. Just like that, I was forced to stay behind in our hometown. I cared for his mother until the end, doing everything for her. Maybe it's true that people soften before death. When she passed, she held my hand, tearfully apologizing, begging me to forgive Nathaniel Hale, saying he had his own burdens, things he couldn't explain. How ridiculous. I had no idea what she meant at the time. I comforted her, held her hand as she peacefully took her last breath. I organized her entire funeral alone. It wasn't until I started handling her estate that I discovered everything had been left to Nathaniel Hale. The old house we lived in, the farmland in the village, the money she had quietly saved over the years, not a single thing was left to me. At that moment, I realized I had no ties left to this place. So I decided to quit my job and go find Nathaniel Hale. But he turned me down. Ella, he said sternly. Why are your thoughts so backward? Do you have any idea how underdeveloped this area is? Those kids have never even seen a cell phone. I have to go all the way to town just to call you. Can't you imagine how desperate they are to learn? You only think about how I'm not by your side, but what about those children, who don't even have a school to attend? Everyone else is moving forward, but you're stuck in the past. I don't have time for this nonsense. Then he hung up. I looked down at my hands and thought maybe I was selfish. Maybe I really had only been thinking about myself, and not the education of children in those far-off mountains. When Natalie White found out her mother had left her nothing, not even a final mention, she exploded with rage. She called me on voice chat and screamed. Ella Davis, what makes a maid like you think you can act like the lady of the house? You're a joke. No wonder my brother never registered the marriage with you. Who the hell do you think you are? I had raised Natalie White since she was 10. Though we called each other sisters, to a woman who never had children of her own, she was more like a daughter to me. I had thought that if she just talked to Nathaniel Hale, the truth would come out. I never imagined she would go live online, crying to the camera, accusing me of hiding her mother's death just to steal the inheritance, claiming I'd prevented her from returning from abroad in time for the funeral. I tried to defend myself online, but she quickly retaliated with a screenshot of our chat highlighting the exact message where I told her there was no inheritance. Every day, I lived under public scorn, drowning in their mockery and contempt, unable to fight back. I told myself to hold on, that the storm would pass eventually. But instead, Natalie White began live streaming product sales. She became wildly successful. And the final blow came when Nathaniel Hale went live as well. He held up his marriage certificate with Lily Brown and showed bank records of the money he had transferred to me, proving that I was just a live-in housekeeper. So that was it. His so-called teaching in a remote area had just been a cover. He had run away with Lily Brown, his college sweetheart. I knew Lily. After she got married and suffered domestic abuse, both Nathaniel and I had helped her get back on her feet. And me? The truth hit me like a thunderclap. That voice message from Natalie finally made sense. Now I knew why Nathaniel Hale never made our marriage legal. At first, he said I was too young. Later, he insisted that since we'd already celebrated with a banquet and everyone acknowledged it, it didn't matter. He was older than me, and I had always looked up to him like a mentor. Until now. Until I finally saw everything for what it was. He had never loved me. All he ever needed was a loyal, obedient maid. I watched the live stream of his perfect little family, Nathaniel Hale, Lily Brown, and their child. They were glowing with happiness. Rage filled my chest like a wildfire. On my way to confront them in the city, I was hit by a truck. Ella, pick up something nice for dinner, maybe some fish? My co-workers are coming over tonight, and I'll go pick them up. I stared coldly at him as he changed into a crisp white shirt and carefully wet his hair to smooth it down. He glanced at me like usual. Just as he was about to step out the door, I moved quickly to block his path. Where's the grocery money? I asked flatly, my tone ice-cold. You wanted to make fish, didn't you? He paused, clearly surprised, then gave an awkward little smile. We had been married for a year, and he hadn't given a single cent to the household. Back then, I didn't mind. I had my dowry and the red envelope money from our wedding, and I scrimped and saved without ever asking him for much. Only later did I realize that even then, he had already begun secretly supporting Lily Brown. It wasn't until he went off to volunteer that he finally started sending me money for caring for his mother and sister. The same money they later claimed was my maid's salary. I saw the flicker in his eyes, the hesitation as he opened his mouth to speak. But I cut him off before he could say a word. Don't tell me you expect me to catch the fish myself from the river, or are you planning to pay with some other woman's money? Don't act like a damn freeloader. His face darkened instantly. Flustered, he fumbled through his pockets and finally pulled out a crumpled wad of cash, handing it to me. I took it without hesitation. It was all in small change, nickels and dimes. I couldn't help but let out a faint, mocking chuckle. He avoided my gaze, gave a stiff nod, and left in a hurry, his retreating figure tinged with embarrassment. I stood there, clutching the wrinkled bills. Oddly, I felt calm. That money was barely enough to buy a tiny piece of pork. I added a few chili peppers and made a stir-fry. Nathaniel Hale couldn't eat spicy food. In the past, just for him, I had given up my love for anything spicy. But now I only cared about myself. Now I only wanted to be good to me. Just then, a woman walked in, arm in arm with Nathaniel Hale. It was Lily Brown. That smells amazing, Nathaniel, Lily said sweetly, smiling with a coy tilt of her head. Nathaniel's eyes were on her, a gentle curve playing on his lips, his gaze soft, far softer than I'd ever seen when he looked at me. I held my bowl, eyes fixed on Lily Brown, scanning her from head to toe. Then I turned to look at Nathaniel Hale. So, this is your type. Slightly shorter than me, thin, with a face that carried faint traces of life's hardship. In my previous life, after learning about Nathaniel Hale and Lily Brown's affair, I'd obsessed over what she must look like. I'd imagined her to be stunning, so dazzling that he'd willingly abandon his family and endure years of hardship just to be with her. But now that I'd seen her in person, honestly, I was surprised. Turns out, to be loved, you don't have to be beautiful. And that's fine, I can respect that. I can even understand it. But why? Why must their so-called love be built on the selfless sacrifice of an innocent woman? What kind of twisted, sanctimonious love is that? Nathaniel Hale caught my gaze and looked a little flustered. He quickly explained, so Ella, the others couldn't make it tonight, just Lily had time. Ella Davis, did you eat all the food? His face suddenly twisted in anger. Nathaniel, don't be like that, you'll scare Ella Davis. I'm fine, really. I probably came at a bad time and she was probably just really hungry. I should go. Lily, don't defend her. She's petty and ungrateful. Don't waste your kindness on her. Use it tight till go to the state-run restaurant and bring back a couple of dishes. Just don't leave, okay? So that's what this was about. He had money earlier, he just didn't want to give me much of it. Lily Brown quietly sat at the table, then suddenly said, Ella comrade, please don't feel uncomfortable. Nathaniel and I are just co-workers, don't misunderstand. I raised an eyebrow, smirking slightly. Oh? Did I say anything? If there really is nothing between you, why bother explaining? Lily froze, her cheeks turning slightly red. Nathaniel is a good man. As someone who's known him since junior high, I just couldn't bear to see him so exhausted. She walked to the thermos and poured a cup of hot water. As long as you're not misunderstanding, that's good. Here, have some water. Warm yourself up, it's cold. No thanks. I'm not thirsty. Still, she insisted, nudging the cup toward me with a smile that hid just a sliver of something more. Come on, drink a little. Warm you up in this chilly weather. I said no. Her hand suddenly trembled, and the cup tipped sharply. Boiling water splashed out, landing directly on the back of my hand. The burn stung so badly I sucked in a breath through clenched teeth. Right at that moment, Nathaniel Hale walked back in and saw it all. Lily, he barked, his face darkening as he rushed to her side. His voice full of worry. Are you okay? Were you burned? He grabbed her hand and inspected it carefully, brows furrowed. How could you be so careless? What if you got hurt? Lily lowered her head, voice soft and tinged with guilt. I'm fine. Don't blame Ella comrade. She meant well. I'm okay, really. Nathaniel immediately turned to glare at me, voice sharp with blame. Ella Davis, what's wrong with you? Lily's our guest, how could you be so careless? Without even glancing at me again, he walked to the water jar, scooped up a ladle of cold water, and gently poured it over Lily's hand. Does it hurt? Should we go see the doctor? Lily shook her head, whispering, it's really nothing. Don't worry. I let out a cold snort. Go quickly then. If you wait any longer, that little red mark might disappear. Ella Davis, must you be so bitter? He snapped. Then he looked up and caught sight of the swelling blister on my own hand. His expression flickered. Ella, are you okay? I blinked, then put on a sweet, exaggerated tone. Ouch, Nathaniel, my hand stings so bad, what should I do? But Nathaniel had already looked way back to tending Lily Brown. Disgusted by the pathetic scene in front of me, I slammed the door and retreated into the inner room. And so, I missed the fleeting, almost invisible smile that curled at the corner of Lily Brown's lips. I shut out everything happening outside the room. Inside, a rare calm settled over me. After a moment of silence, I carefully placed my university admission letter into my bundle. That year I had scrimped and saved, spending every spare cent to support Nathaniel Hale's family. I hadn't even bought myself a new dress. Now, as I packed, I realized just how few things in this house actually belonged to me. I don't know how much time passed before I stood up to fetch some water to wash. Just as I reached for the bucket, the curtain lifted. Nathaniel Hale stepped in. He held a small bottle of burn ointment in his hand and offered it to me, his tone noticeably softer. This is burn cream. Lily used a bit already, but the rest is for you. Don't let the wound get infected. I took it wordlessly. No point in playing the martyr, my body, after all, is my own to protect. He sighed and softened further. I know I sounded harsh earlier, but Lily, she's my old classmate and colleague. I couldn't just ignore it when she got hurt, right? Don't take it too hard. I cut him off. No need to explain. I get it. The room fell quiet. Outside, the wind whispered faintly through the trees. Nathaniel seemed like he wanted to say something more. His gaze drifted across the room and landed on the bundle in the corner, then to the wardrobe, clearly much emptier than before. His brows furrowed. Why are you packing? Where are you going? Nowhere. Didn't you say a few days ago that you were planning to bring your mother and sister to the city? I was just sorting things out. No point keeping things we don't use, it only clutters the place. He froze for a second, clearly surprised I brought that up. Lily, you've had it hard. They've been struggling back in the village, and I haven't been the best son these past years. Now that things are better here, I figured I'd bring them over. That way, the whole family can be together again. I'll tidy up my room and move into yours so they can have theirs. Give it a few days, I said flatly. I haven't finished organizing in here. He hesitated, then gave a quiet. In the days that followed, I busied myself selling off my dowry items: the sewing machine, the radio, a flashlight, and some small furniture. The money I made would go toward my college tuition. When I pushed open the door, I was greeted by the lively clatter of voices from the main room. Nathaniel Hale, Lily Brown, his mother, and his sister Natalie White were all seated around the table, chatting cheerfully over a freshly prepared meal. Dishes were laid out, steam rising. It had clearly just been cooked. The moment they heard me enter, everyone turned to look. The room fell awkwardly silent. Nathaniel Hale stood up first, his tone a bit strained. Ella, you're back. We thought you'd be late, so we started eating. His mother gave me a glance, her voice cold. Why are you standing there? Sit down and eat. I didn't respond. I set down the bag of groceries, picked up a bowl, and scooped myself some rice. No reason to waste good food. Lily Brown picked up a piece of meat and placed it in Nathaniel's bowl, giggling. Nathaniel, your cooking is amazing, so much better than mine. He chuckled modestly. Oh, it's nothing, just something simple. As I listened to their conversation, my hand paused, chopsticks midra. But I didn't look up, I just continued eating in silence. We'd been married for a year. And only now did I find out Nathaniel Hale could even cook. Nathaniel suddenly cleared his throat, his tone turning formal. Actually, there's something I want to tell you all. I've applied to teach in a rural area. I'll be heading out in a few days. I looked up at his mother and Natalie. They didn't seem surprised at all. You're going to teach in the countryside. Why didn't you discuss it with me first? I asked. He frowned, clearly impatient. This is for the children. For education. It's a noble cause, Ella. You should support me. His mother chimed in immediately. That's right. Nathaniel is doing something meaningful. Don't hold him back. So what about me? And your mother? I asked, my tone low and listless. How about we all go together, as a family? Nathaniel's face stiffened with panic. He instinctively glanced at Lily Brown, then let out an awkward laugh. Ella, don't joke around. Life in the mountains is harsh. How would Mom and Natalie manage? Besides, this is my responsibility. No need for everyone to suffer. I looked at the nervous faces around me and felt a bitter laugh bubble up in my chest. Outwardly, I wore only sadness. But Nathaniel, I worry about you. I hate the idea of you going alone, suffering all by yourself. Under my gaze, he seemed uncomfortable. His voice grew stiff. Ella, for the sake of those children, I'd endure any hardship. And if you understand that, I feel truly blessed. I said nothing more. I lowered my head and resumed eating. The rest of the meal passed in silence. When we finished, Nathaniel Hale stood up. Lily, it's getting late. I'll walk you home. Ella, I need to stop by the school afterward for some documents. Don't wait up. Lily looked at him with soft, affectionate eyes. Thank you, Nathaniel. I was a little scared walking alone at night. I leaned against the doorframe, watching them walk off together. When they had gotten a fair distance, I called out loudly. Nathaniel Hale, make sure you walk Lily Brown comrade home safely, won't you? I understand you help her every day. Out of all your co-workers, she's the only one you care for, but I know it's just because you're being thoughtful. We lived in teacher housing, surrounded by his colleagues and superiors. Nathaniel Hale clearly realized it, too. His face turned pale in an instant. I saw he was about to say something, so I quickly cut him off, shouting, Don't worry about it, really, it's fine. You two go ahead. You're both married, it's not a big deal if you take care of her. Go on. Then I slammed the door shut. Sure enough, Nathaniel Hale didn't come home that night. The next morning, I left the house early to exercise. After my dramatic outburst the night before, everyone I ran into looked embarrassed. I pretended not to notice. I even asked one of them, on their way to school, to pass a message to Nathaniel Hale for me, tell him not to overwork himself. He didn't come home all night. I was worried sick. I didn't care what kind of expression they had after hearing that. I still had things to take care of. I sold everything I could get my hands on, pocketed the cash, and headed to the train station to buy my ticket. In just 3 days, I'd finally be chasing my dream of going to university, no longer trapped in the illusion Nathaniel Hale had spun around me. On the way back, I stopped by the state-run restaurant I had always been reluctant to splurge on. As soon as I walked in, I saw Nathaniel Hale and Lily Brown sitting across from each other at a small square table. The moment Nathaniel saw me, he jumped up as if to explain, but I glanced at them briefly and headed to a table by the wall. Ella, I just happened to run into Comrade Lily, and we decided to grab a meal together, Nathaniel called out from across the room. When I opened my eyes again, Nathaniel Hale and Lily Brown had sat down across from me. Shut up. Get lost, I said flatly. I had no intention of letting them ruin my rare moment of peace with a good meal. Nathaniel's expression immediately turned stern. The nervousness from earlier was gone, replaced by a slight frown. Ella, how can you speak like that? He scolded. It's okay, Nathaniel, Lily Brown said gently, wiping away her tears. Ella doesn't work in education like we do. It's understandable if she's a bit uncivilized sometimes. I just feel sorry that you've been stuck with someone like Onendadidadal. I didn't mean anything by that. Nathaniel, maybe I should just leave. Let's have lunch another time. I don't want to cause another argument between you two. She stood up crying, trying to leave, but Nathaniel grabbed her arm and comforted her. You're not going anywhere. You've done nothing wrong. You sit here and eat. Don't worry about saving me any trouble before we head out to the countryside. I want to make sure you eat well. The two of them tugged at each other for a bit before sitting back down across from me again. I sighed clearly. A quiet meal was out of the question today. Ella, apologize to Lily right now. This is the second time you've insulted Comrade Lily. I demand a sincere apology, Nathaniel ordered, staring straight at me, but I could see the way his eyes kept darting to Lily Brown like he was silently telling her, look, Lily, I've got your back. I won't let anyone hurt you. Lily looked at him with adoring eyes, full of affection. Bang, the server slammed the dishes on the table. Young lady, can't you be a little more forgiving? Look how upset you've made this lovely couple. Nathaniel hadn't been quiet, and once Lily started crying, the entire restaurant had fallen silent. Judging by the server's attitude, everyone had heard everything. She's right. Bullying them like that, you look sweet enough, but your heart's just rotten, someone at the next table chimed in. Oh? Then I hope you all handle home wreckers with the same grace when it's your turn. Nathaniel shot up from his seat. Watch your mouth, a woman's reputation is sacred. Ella Davis, I won't tolerate this anymore. You've crossed the line today. Apologize to Lily Brown. Now or else. Or else what? I cut him off. And what exactly did I say that wasn't true? Should we go ask your mother, ask the neighbors, whether they attended our wedding banquet? Nathaniel's face went pale. We didn't even. I cut him off again. I knew he was about to say we never registered our marriage and that it wasn't legally binding. But we did hold a banquet, and in our rural hometown, that's as good as a wedding. I didn't lie. When I walked in earlier, your chopsticks were practically in her mouth. Am I wrong? Plenty of people saw it. Server, you were here, didn't you see it? The server flushed red, realizing she had misunderstood the situation and where my anger was really coming from. Her face darkened as she suddenly turned on Lily Brown, pushing her away. Out, shameless homewrecker. You've got some nerve showing your face in a state-run restaurant. You're not welcome here. Leave, or I'll report you. Lily Brown's face turned deathly pale. Nathaniel threw himself in front of her, shielding her, and clearly had no time to care whether I apologized or not. The two of them fled in a panic. When I got home, only my mother-in-law and Natalie White were there. I grabbed my luggage and headed for the door. Natalie saw I was leaving and panicked, rushing into the inner room to fetch my mother-in-law. She came out and tried to stop me, but I couldn't care less. That old woman was sick last lifetime. I stayed because I was soft-hearted. But this time, no one's responsibility but her own. I shoved her aside, and she looked stunned. She never thought the doormat she was used to would stop licking her boots. She collapsed on the ground and began wailing, but I simply opened the door, ready to leave. Sis, don't leave me, Natalie cried, running after me. I quickly shut the door, locking her inside, and listened as she cried and banged on it from the other side. I thought about how I spent my last life scraping and sacrificing, and now, staying at a guest house, I steeled myself. No more regrets. This time, I was going to be good to myself. Better. And then even better. The next day, I wrote several anonymous reports, one to Nathaniel Hale's school, and another to the family of Lily Brown's late husband. Lily's husband had been a government employee. Using the excuse that she would remain widowed to honor his memory, she'd been allowed to keep the house and receive his pension. But the truth was, there had never been a violent husband. And Nathaniel Hale hadn't heroically rescued her from domestic abuse. Now that I think about it, the entire story had been a lie he made up in our past life to manipulate me, a noble-sounding reason to mask his betrayal. In our previous life, Nathaniel Hale had voluntarily gone to the countryside to teach as part of a public education initiative. He'd been held up as a model educator, which later helped him and Lily Brown secure coveted positions in the big city of S-City. But this time, I would make sure the narrative changed. They weren't noble volunteers, but adulterers forced into exile. I wanted to see if, with such a stain on their names, they could still manage to climb their way back to the city. The morning air was crisp and refreshing. I took deep breaths, greedily drawing it in. Once I boarded this train, I didn't know when I'd return. This cold, clean air might be my last taste of home for a long while. At the train station, I spotted the man and a girl standing hunched in the cold, craning their necks toward the entrance. It was Nathaniel Hale and his younger sister, Natalie White. When Natalie saw me, she tugged on Nathaniel's sleeve. He immediately broke into a smile and rushed over, reaching to take my luggage. Ella, we've been searching everywhere for you. The whole house is in chaos. Mom can't take care of herself on her own. One of my classmates said they saw you buying a ticket, so I'd been waiting here ever since. Thank God fate brought us together. He looked at me with what he probably thought was a deeply affectionate gaze. Sis, I missed you too, Natalie chimed in, trying to squeeze herself into the moment. I looked at them without emotion, gripping my suitcase tightly. And what the hell does that have to do with me? Ella, don't say that. We're husband and wife. My home is your home, and my mother. We're not, I interrupted loudly. We never registered our marriage. Legally, we are not husband and wife. Nathaniel froze, hand still awkwardly suspended in my dress. His face turned an ugly shade of pale. After a long pause, he finally withdrew his hand and spoke in a lower, less confident voice. Is this because of Lily? I can explain. It's not. Then Ella, I'll treat you better. Once I settle into my teaching position, I'll come back for you. Or better yet, let's get married right away and have a baby boy. What do you say? I say no. I chuckled, cold, calm, and cutting. No, I'm leaving simply because you're trash. And it's time I took out the trash. I reached out and patted Natalie White on the head. As for you, take care of yourself. Sis, she tried to say something, but Nathaniel shoved her aside. He wasn't used to me being so cold. He panicked. Just as he lunged forward, a shrill voice called out behind us. Nathaniel Gege. It was Lily Brown, running toward us with tears streaming down her face, her voice pitiful and soft. Before she could reach us, she dramatically tripped and fell flat on the ground. Nathaniel immediately rushed over. I watched with amusement. So they still have the time to put on a show for me. Must mean the reports haven't gone through yet. Well, if not now, then when? Without a second thought, I slipped into the train station. As the train slowly began to move, I gazed out the window. To my surprise, Nathaniel Hale had somehow made it onto the platform. He was running along the windows, peering into each one. Ella, where are you? Come back. I said nothing. I just watched as he chased the train in a panic, stumbling in the cold wind. Then, just as I'd hoped, he tripped and fell to the ground. I let out a quiet snort of laughter. First Natalie falls, then Lily, and now him. How poetic. The whole twisted family, falling one by one. All that's missing is the old hag back at home taking a tumble too. In the dim morning light, I watched Nathaniel scramble back to his feet, frantically scanning the platform. Then, gradually, he grew smaller and smaller until he vanished from sight. Bonus chapter Nathaniel Hale. It was only later that I realized Ella leading the station that day was just the beginning. The school launched a sudden disciplinary meeting, focusing on moral conduct and education. Lily and I were made examples of. We were dragged onto the stage in front of everyone. I stood there, head bowed in shame. I hadn't lowered my head once since becoming a proud high school teacher. Ella, so you really hated me that much? Then, out of nowhere, a furious old woman stormed in, Lily's late husband's mother. She rushed the stage, grabbed Lily by the hair, and started hitting her while spewing every obscene word imaginable. And I'd heard plenty in the countryside, but even I was shocked by her creativity. I tried to pull her off Lily, but several more people surged forward, her husband's relatives, and I was quickly overwhelmed. Fists rained down on me, knocking out my front tooth. Even the principal didn't dare intervene until it was nearly over. That day, I knew it was all over. Everything I'd planned gone. We were no longer volunteer teachers but disgraced lovers forced into exile. The original teaching post was reassigned to a much more remote location. My carefully laid plan to transfer to a city in a few years was completely shattered. To make matters worse, I was sent back under escort. When my mother saw the state I was in, she had a stroke on the spot. Thankfully, it only left her partially paralyzed. If she'd been fully incapacitated, I don't know how Natalie would have managed. I told Natalie, life is like this, bitter before sweet. Things will get better eventually. I'll take care of you from now on, I promise. But the way Natalie looked at me, so distant, so unfamiliar, I understood why. After I left, all that remained at home was my frail, ailing mother, and all the housework inevitably fell on Natalie's shoulders. After I got together with Ella, she felt sorry for Natalie. She practically took care of everything: Natalie's meals, clothing, daily needs. And knowing Natalie hadn't been able to attend school, Ella would tutor her in first and second grade subjects, hoping that one day she could catch up and enroll. But once Ella left, all of that became nothing more than a fantasy for Natalie. Thinking of this, I did feel some resentment toward Ella. Natalie's just a girl. What difference would going to school even make? She'd end up getting married anyway. Ella gave her a glimpse of a bigger world, then turned around and walked away, leaving me with the mess. Even Lily's house was taken back by her mother-in-law. That night, the two of us would lie on the king bed, staring at the ceiling, unsure of what the future held for us. The next time I saw Ella was almost always on television. She seemed to have become some sort of writer. I wasn't quite sure. I didn't have regular access to a TV. I was still stuck in the countryside. Because I had made a mistake, I wasn't allowed to return to the city like the other sent-down youth. There was no spot for me. I remained in a small rural school, teaching. It wasn't so bad I was alone, but I managed. As for Lily Brown, she ran off early. That wretched woman, she ruined my life. Sometimes I wondered, could Ella still have feelings for me? Otherwise, why hadn't she married even in her 30s? At night, I often clung to that thought, dreaming sweet dreams. Until one day I saw a gossip piece on Evie about her new boyfriend, some so-called pretty boy. I was furious, cursing her endlessly, shameless, disgraceful. Then I'd wake up, still in that cold, dilapidated room, and start fantasizing again. Maybe Ella would come and rescue me from this misery. I always felt like my life wasn't meant to end up this way. Ella, my goddess. I won't begrudge you for finding someone new. But when will you come and pull me out of this pit? Let me share in your lavish life, your delicacies and riches.